Great, let's move on to the next exercise then. So here we'll go in the app first, and compound components. So here it's not a whole lot different, except now we have this text up here that says the button is on, the button is off. On the exercise we don't have that, it's not working. So let's go ahead and pop open 02 in the exercise. And so if we look at the usage down here at the bottom, you'll find, and actually, sorry, really quick, somebody asked me what is this .title property I'm putting on usage. That's actually just for this. So it's nothing weird or magic, it's just implementation detail. So yeah, our usage, the API to the usage function didn't change. We're still accepting an on toggle, defaulting that to console log. So if you pop open your console, you should see those logs. So our toggle, the API, the props API has not changed. It should still accept an on toggle prop. But now we have these static components. These are called compound components. So actually, let me get into the why behind this. The why behind, actually I don't have a why for that, so I'll just explain it. So inside of our render component, we're saying, hey, listen, I'm a toggle component, and this is what I render. That's all. That's all you get for using me. But what if I come in and I say, hey, listen, it'd be really cool if I could have a message that appears above the toggle component inside of that same thing that says whether or not it's on or off. Maybe you're doing this for accessibility reasons or something. And so like inside of our render method, we could say if this.props.render message, then we'll we'll add a render a message here as well, and we could even have what that message is and so on. But that isn't what that leads to is a more complicated API and a more complicated implementation. And so instead, what we could do is we'd say, yes, if you want to render anything within this toggle component, then we'll provide these additional components that share implicit state with the parent. So if you think about this like a select shares implicit state with the option, that is a compound component. Where the select is the thing that holds the state, and then these options communicate with the parent to create, by themselves they're useless, but together they're very useful. That's the idea behind these compound components. And so here we say, hey, if the toggle button is on, then I want to render this. If it's off, then I want to render this. And the cool thing about using compound components is I actually have control over what order these things are rendering in. And so maybe I should do this in the final version so you can see. Oh, no peeking. So if I put this down below, and now I toggled this on, and it jumps back and forth. And you would never want to actually do that. It's like users are like, what? I feel like Medium does that when I go to reply to somebody's thing. It pops up all their stuff. It's super annoying. And I click on their article by accident. I'm pretty sure they do that on purpose. So that's some of the benefits of compound components here is the ability to choose what order things are rendered in. Also, to be able to share some implicit state between the parent and the children. So I don't have to know that the toggle component is managing an on state. I just use these things, and they're responsible for rendering certain things. So the toggle on is responsible for rendering its children when the on state is true. The toggle off is the same in reverse, and then the toggle button will render the switch. So yes, to accomplish this, you're going to be, first off, these are working based on static properties, so they're static properties of the toggle component, and they themselves are components. You can just do this with arrow functions. The really tricky part is providing the necessary props to these components that you'll have to do, and that you'll be using React Children Map to take this.props.children, map it to different components, and you'll clone those elements. So when I create one of these, when I do this, this is transpiling into React.createElement. So this is actually giving me an element. And so the this.props.children inside of my render method here is an array of elements. And so I'm using React Children Map to map over those elements, and then from that map function, I return a call to react.cloneElement. And that process, I can provide additional props, which is exactly what you're going to be doing. I've provided the documentation. If you're not familiar with these methods, you can go look that up. And with that, let's go ahead and go to our tests, open up 2, and swap out the final usage for the exercise usage. And you'll start getting your errors.